Bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. I'm your host, Jasmine McTague, coming to you live from Jersey City, New Jersey. And now the details at this time. Democrats and Republicans each want to flash election year signals that they are riding to the rescue of families struggling with the rising costs and a 2-year-old coronavirus pandemic. Not surprisingly, the parties differ over how to do that. And in comments and votes in the Senate last week, each side flashed out themes it will use to compete for voters in this fall's voting for control of Congress. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican, talked about inflation, bashing President Joe Biden and Democrats for policies like curbing drilling on federal lands that said were stifling domestic energy reduction and driving up gasoline prices. But he also raised cultural war issues that have flared in the nation's schools, including mask mandates and social justice instruction that conservatives found objectionable. Republicans are standing up for science, for common sense, and for children's best interests, McConnell said. The party of the parents has your back, he added, a remark that conjured angry mothers and fathers at school board meetings that the GOP hopes to harness. 2 years of needless school closures and unscientific forced child masking are 2 years too many, he said. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat, said Democrats will focus on pushing solutions that will lower costs and leave more money in people's pocket. Chiding Republicans, he said, complaining about the problem doesn't make inflation better, proposing solution does. Schumer said, Democrats are considering legislation to reduce costs for childcare, food, prescription drugs, and semiconductors, the vital computer parts now facing supply chain shortages. We're still going to move forward, even if GOP oppositions would doom a proposal, Schumer said, suggesting that unsuccessful Senate votes would produce political values for Democrats. And now, our next story. Kim Potter, the former suburban Minneapolis police officer who said she confused her handgun for her taser when she fatally shot Dewante Wright, was sentenced Friday to 2 years in prison. Wright's family denounced the sentence as too lenient and accused the judge for giving more consideration to the white officer than a black victim. Potter was convicted in December of first and second-degree manslaughter in April 11's killing of Wright, a 20-year-old black motorist. She was sentenced only on the more serious charge in accordance with the state law. Wright's mother, Katie Wright, said after the sentencing that Potter murdered my son, adding, "Today, the justice system murdered him all over again." She also accused the judge of being taken in by white women tears after Potter cried during her pre-sentencing statement. Our next story, Northern Arizona. This once bustling city in northern Arizona was a troubled relationship with rain. Winslow needs it, but just a little can overwhelm a levee system that officials have pleaded with the federal government for years to fix. Local officials believe a push from the Biden administration to fund projects that helps disadvantaged communities give them an edge this year. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers recently announced $65 million in going to Winslow's flood control project until they were able to introduce a criteria that recognized other social effects and socioeconomic levels of the communities and environmental impacts. It was just a numbers game, Navajo County Public Works Director John Osgood said. And until you could reach a certain level, you weren't going to be competitive. You were going to receive funding. President Joe Biden promised last year that 40% of the benefits of federal investments in areas such as climate change that can increase flood risk would flow to disadvantaged communities, including those with high rates of poverty and unemployment. The White House calls the efforts Justice 40. Our next story. Jose Garza ran for district attorney in Austin on promises to hold police accountable in Texas' capital city. He got off to a fast start, charging at least 7 officers during his first year on the job, including one charged with murder twice. But no cases have reached deeper into the police department than the indictment Thursday of 19 officers on felony charges over tactics used during a 2020 racial injustice protest. 19 is, I don't know any place else that's done that, said Margaret Moore, Garza's predecessor as the district attorney of Travis County. The indictments widened a rift in the booming city between Austin police and Garza, a Democrat whose 2020 campaign was backed by liberal allies, including U.S. Senate Bernie Sanders, and promised crackdowns on misconduct by law enforcement. By late Friday, all of the newly charged officers have been placed on administrative leave, said Saul Gray, and the department spokesman. Garza said that the indictments were not politically driven and that our community is safer when our community trusts law enforcement. Community activists who have long criticized the city's handling of the protests, which included officers firing beanbag rounds into the crowd, called the indictment overdue, said Garza deserves credit. And now a short break of our daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 daily local news update. And now the story of the hour. Mississippi. Mississippi is accustomed to being first and worst. It is one of the poorest, unhealthiest states in the nation, with public schools that are chronically underfunded. Some Republican leaders say a good way to boost the state's fortunes would be to phase out its income tax. There is no downside in putting money back into the pockets of Mississippians, said Republican House Speaker Philip Gunn, one of the main sponsors of a tax cut bill advancing in legislators. Opponents said erasing the income tax is a terrible idea because it would mean even less money for schools, healthcare, roads, and other services, especially hurting poor and working class residents. The Mississippi income tax accounts for 34% of the state's revenue. Wealthy people will see the biggest financial boost from eliminating income tax because they're not the ones paying the most now. Democrat State Senate Hob Ryan said, people don't choose where to live because of tax policies, but because of family ties and quality of life. He said people live in high-tax New York, for example, because the city offers opportunities. Our next story of the hour. Let's talk California. California's Governor Gavin Newsom proposed Friday letting private citizens in his state sue gun makers to stop them from selling assault weapons, just as Texas let its residents sue abortion providers to stop the procedures, then essentially dare the U.S. Supreme Court to treat both issues the same. At a news conference in the coastal town of Del Mar, north of San Diego, Newsom said he thought that Texas law was wrong and the Supreme Court's decision in December to let it stay in effect while it appealed was absurd and outrageous. But they opened up the doors. They set the tone, tenor, and the rules. And either we can be on the defense complaining about it, or we can play by those rules. We're going to play by those rules, Newsom said. He later added, we'll see how principled the United States Supreme Court is. The unique Texas law approved last year bans all abortions once fetal heartbeat is detected, usually around the 6 weeks of pregnancy. The law does not let the government enforce it. Instead, private citizens can sue abortion providers or anyone who aids and abets the procedure. Let's go on to our next story. $73 million lawsuit settlement for Sandy Hook. After agreeing to a $73 million lawsuit settlement with gun maker Remington, the family of 9 Sandy Hook elementary school shooting victims say they are shifting their focus to ending firearms advertising with macho military themes that exploit young men's insecurities, all in the hopes of preventing more mass shootings. The family say that Remington used those kinds of ads to promote an AR-15 style rifle like the one used to kill 20 young children and 6 educators inside Newtown, Connecticut school on December 14, 2012. Remington's marketing strategies are expected to be unveiled when families' lawyers publicly release thousands of internal company documents obtained during the lawsuit. Lawyers of Remington and its insurers agreed to the disclosure as part of the settlement announced Tuesday. This is a case about creating change. Nicole Hockley, whose 6-year-old son Dylan was killed in the shooting, said in an interview after the settlement was announced. Right now, I am waiting really to have access to the documents to figure out how to use that to help drive safety and better practices for sales and marketing. On to our next story. On to Texas. A Texas grand jury indicted 19 Austin police officers on charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for their actions during the 2020 protests over racial injustice that spread nationwide following the killing of George Floyd, according to the people familiar with the matter. Multiple people spoke to the Associated Press Thursday on conditions of anonymity, to be anonymous, because they were not authorized to discuss the case publicly. Austin Police Association President Ken Cassidy confirmed 19 officers are facing charges but did not have details. It's ranked among the most indictments on a single police department in the U.S. over tactics used by officers during a widespread protest. Methods that led to the resignation or ousters of several police chiefs across the country. Word of the indictment came hours after Austin City's leader approved paying $10 million to 2 people injured by members of the 1,640 officers department in the protest, including a college student who suffered brain damage after an officer shot him with a beanbag round. Combined, the charges and settlement amounted to the conservative Texas liberal capital of 960,000 people taking some of its biggest actions as criticism still simmers over its handling of the protest, which intensified pressure on the police chief, Brian Manley, to eventually step down. Jose Garza, the district attorney now for Travis County, which included Austin, spoke to journalists Thursday afternoon about the grand jury investigation, but gave no specifics about it, including how many officers are facing charges and for what crimes. Our community is safer when our community trusts enforcement, which is true, when it believes law enforcement follows the law and protects the people who live there, here, Garza said. There cannot be trust if there is no accountability when law enforcement breaks the law. A spokesperson for Travis County District Attorney Office, Ishmael Martinez, declined to comment on the number of officers charged and refer reporters to Garza's comments. And now, a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Now the story of the hour. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin assured that 3 ballistic nations Saturday that they would not be on their own if faced with security threats from Russia, but he stopped short of promising a permanent deployment of American troops in the former Soviet Republic. Austin was in Lithuania as a massive Russian troop buildup and other actions have Western officials saying that Moscow could invade Ukraine at any time. Although Russia has denied planning on invasion, they are uncoiling and are now poised to strike. Austin said Saturday about the readiness of Russia's troops to attack Ukraine. Lithuanian officials voiced concerns that Russian President Vladimir Putin's alleged ambitions could expand to the entire region. The battle for Ukraine is a battle for Europe. If Putin is not stopped there, he will go further. Lithuanian Foreign Minister Gabrielis Landsbergis said during a joint news conference with Austin. They are choosing the way that is based on force. We need to send a very clear, unambiguous message that would be faced by a very clear and swift response. For our next story and continuing on Russia. Pro-Russia separatist leaders in eastern Ukraine ordered a full military mobilization Saturday, while Western leaders made increasingly dire warnings that a Russian invasion of its neighbor appeared imminent. In a new sign of fear that a war could start within days, Germany and Austria told their citizens to leave Ukraine. German air carriers, the Lufthansa, canceled flights to the capital, Kyiv, and to Odessa, a Black Sea port that could be a key target in the invasion. NATO's liaison office in Kyiv said that it was relocating staff to Brussels and the western Ukraine city of Lviv. Meanwhile, top Ukraine military officials came under a shelling attack during a tour of the front of the nearly 8-year separatist conflict in eastern Ukraine. The officials fled to bomb shelters before hustling from the area, according to a journalist from the Associated Press who was on the tour. Violence in eastern Ukraine has spiked in recent days as Ukraine and 2 regions housed by rebels each accused the other of escalation. Russia on Saturday said at least 2 shells fired from the government-held part of eastern Ukraine landed across the border, but Ukraine Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba dismissed claims as fake statements. On to our next story. A modeling agent who was close to disgrace U.S. financier Jeffrey Epstein was found dead Saturday in his French jail cell, where he's been held in investigation into the rape of minors and trafficking of minors for sexual exploitation, according to Paris prosecutor's office. Victims of the alleged abuse described shock and dismay that the agent, Jean-Luc Brunel, will never face trial. They described his death as a double blow after Epstein killed himself in 2019 in a Manhattan jail while waiting sex trafficking charges. Paris police are investigating Brunel's death, and the prosecutor's office said the circumstances of his death were not made public, and Brunel's lawyer did not comment on it. Brunel denied wrongdoings and said via his lawyer that he was willing to talk to the investigators. Brunel's legal team had repeatedly complained about the conditions of his detention and sought to have him released pending trial. Brunel, who was in his 70s, was detained at the Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport in 2020 as part of a broad French probe unleashed by the U.S. sex trafficking charges against Epstein. A frequent companion of Epstein, Brunel was considered central to the French investigation into the alleged sexual exploitations of women and girls by the U.S. financier and his circle. Epstein traveled often to France and had apartments in Paris. Multiple women who identified themselves as victims have spoke to police since the French probe was opened in 2019, and at times expressed frustration with the slow pace of the investigation. On to our next story. Crews cleared fallen trees and worked to restore power to about 400,000 people in Britain as Western Europe cleaned up Saturday after one of the most damaging storms in years. At least 12 people were killed, many by falling trees in Ireland, Britain, and Belgium, and the Netherlands and Germany. Names store Inuits by the British and Irish Weather Service. Storm Zeynep in Germany's Friday storm was the second to hit the region in a week. Wind toppled the spire of a church in Wales. Southwest England ripped off parts of dome roof of London's O2 Arena and left a trail of felled trees and damaged buildings across several countries. A gust of 122 miles an hour was provisionally recorded Friday on the Isles of Wight. If confirmed, it would be the highest ever in England. Hurricane force's wind began at 74 miles per hour. The Met Office Weather Service said more strong winds would hit the southern coast of England and Wales on Saturday, with the potential for further damage, while snow and ice could cause disruption further north. The UK National Rail Association said routes across most of Great Britain remained affected by the weather on Saturday morning, with disruptions to continue throughout the day. Transports in Germany also remain severely disrupted, with railways operator in Deutsche Bayern said no long-distance train would operate north of Dortmund, Hanover, and Berlin until at least 6 p.m. The storm left at least 3 people dead in Germany, including a man who fell as he was trying to repair a damaged roof, and a driver whose car crashed into a tree that had fallen across the road. And in northwestern city of Bremen, a 55-meter or 180-foot crane fell onto an unfinished office building. And now a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update, and now the story at this time. Canada and the protesters. Police aggressively pushed back protesters in Canada, besieged capital on Saturday, seizing control of trucks and clearing the streets in front of Parliament, the heart of the protests. Scores of trucks left under an increasing pressure, rising authorities hope for an end to the 3-week protest against the country's COVID-19 restrictions and the government of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Authorities took control of the streets in front of Parliament Hill, which has been occupied by protesters and their trucks since late last month and had been turned into a carnival on weekend. Ottawa police addressed the protesters in a tweet. "We told you to leave. We gave you time to leave. We were slow and methodical, yet you were assaultive and aggressive with officers and the horses. Based on your behavior, we are responding by including helmets and batons for our safety." Police said one protester launched a gas canister and has arrested as they advance. Late Saturday morning, authorities were pushing crowds away from Parliament Hill. By Friday evening, at least 100 people have been arrested, mostly on mischief charges, and nearly 24 vehicles have been towed, including all of those blocking one of the city's major streets, authorities say. One officer had a minor injury, but no protesters were hurt. Interim Ottawa Police Chief Stephen Bell said. On to our next story. We're now talking about Greece. Rescue teams in Greece searched a burning ferry Saturday for 12 people believed to be missing after it caught fire in the Ionian Sea while en route to Italy. While passengers described a frightening evacuation from the ship, after working all night, they tried to extinguish the blaze that broke out on Friday. Firefighting vessels surrounded the Euro ferry Olympia, which was carrying more than 290 passengers and crew. The Greek Coast Guards and other boats evacuated about 280 of them to Corfu. "When we got into the boats, I said I escaped hell," truck driver Demetrius Karolinidis told the Associated Press. Photos taken Saturday morning showed thick smoke hanging over the ship, which was transporting 153 trucks and 32 cars. A Greek Coast Guard spokeswoman told Associated Press on Saturday afternoon that none of the 12 missing people have been found, and although she said only small pockets of fire were active in the ferry, a Greek prosecutor on the island of Corfu has ordered an investigation into the cause of the fire, which broke out 3 hours after the ferry left the port of Igoumenitsa on the mainland in northwest Greece across the Corfu for the Italian port of Brindisi. The Italian-based company that operated the ferry said the fire started in a hole where vehicles were parked. The ship's captain and 2 engineers were arrested Friday, but were released the same day, authorities said. "We heard the alarm and we thought it was some kind of drill, but we saw there was a porthole that people were running," Karolinidis told the AP. "You can't think something at the time other than your family. When I hit the deck, I saw the smoke and children. Fortunately, the crew, acted quickly." On to our next story. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said Saturday that now is the moment of truth to determine whether Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers can be salvaged and that the Iranian leadership needs to make a choice. Iran's foreign minister, though, said that it is up to the Western country to show flexibility, and the ball is now in their court. Negotiators from Iran and the remaining parties to the agreement, Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and China, are working in Vienna to restore life to an accord which grant Iran sanction relief in exchange for curbs on its nuclear program. The United States have participated indirectly in the talks because it withdrew from the deal in 2018 under then President Donald Trump. President Joe Biden has signaled that he wants to rejoin the deal. Under Trump, the U.S. reimposed heavy sanctions on Iran. Tehran had responded by increasing the purity and amount of uranium in its enriches and stockpiles in the breach of the accord, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. Schultz told participants at the annual Munich Security Conference on Saturday that Iran nuclear talks have come a long way over the past 10 months, and all elements for a conclusion of the negotiations are on the table. But he also criticized Iran for stepping up its enrichment and restricting inspections by monitoring from the UN Nuclear Agency. And now for our final story. Moscow would have its access to financial markets and high-tech goods limited under Western sanctions being prepared in case Russia attacks Ukraine, a top European Union official said Saturday. The comments from Ursula von der Leyen, head of the EU Executive Commission, came as tensions over Russia's intentions toward Ukraine intensified. U.S. President Joe Biden said Friday he was convinced that Russian President Vladimir Putin has decided to invade the neighboring country. The Kremlin's dangerous thinking, which comes straight out of the dark past, may cost Russia a prosperous future, von der Leyen said Saturday during the annual Munich Security Conference, where U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris also spoke. Von der Leyen said the EU executive arms have developed a robust and comprehensive package of possible financial sanctions against Russia with the US, UK, and Canada. In case the Russia strikes, we will limit the access to financial markets for Russian economy and impose an export control that will stop the possibility for Russia to modernize and diversify its economy, she added. And we have a lot of high-tech goods where we have a global dominance and that are absolutely necessary for Russia and cannot be replaced easily. And this was the daily local news update of Millennium News 24/7. Log in to get the latest news. Our social networking sites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is Millennium News 24. Our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers now on both network broadcasting, Android, iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, also all smart TV platforms. Please enjoy our entertainment and latest news and views. Our Millennium TV app, Millennium TV USA, Android, Millennium News Google, www.millenniumnews24.com. Stay with Millennium News 24, and thank you for watching.